The crystal towers of Zephyr Prime shimmered as they cracked and fell. Commander Veltar watched in horror as another piece of his beautiful world died. His insect-like face twitched with fear. The enemy ships looked like giant black worms floating through space, eating everything they touched. How many stations have we lost? Veltar asked his second-in-command. 17 orbital platforms in the last hour, sir. The bioships are multiplying faster than we can destroy them. Veltar's 4 arms shook as he gripped his command chair. The Void Swarm had appeared 3 weeks ago from the dark space between galaxies. They consumed metal, flesh, energy, everything. Worse yet, they learned from every battle, adapting their living ships to counter any weapon the Federation used against them. The communication officer's voice cracked with panic. Sir, Admiral Kethmore's entire battle group just went dark. We're detecting massive biomass expansion in that sector. Through the viewing portal, Veltar could see the swarm's feeding frenzy. The creatures didn't just destroy, they absorbed. Every ship they consumed made them stronger, smarter, hungrier. What started as a small scouting force had grown into a plague that threatened to devour the entire galaxy. The Altarian Defense Fleet is requesting immediate evacuation, another officer reported. Their homeworld's atmosphere is being consumed. They have maybe 6 hours before total planetary death. Veltar closed his large, compound eyes. In all his years serving the Galactic Federation, he'd never seen anything like this. The Federation represented over 200 species across 50,000 star systems. They had the most advanced technology in known space. They had ships that could crack moons and weapons that could boil oceans. None of it mattered against an enemy that ate their attacks and grew stronger. Send the emergency broadcast, Veltar ordered quietly. Maximum range transmission. Every system, every species, every outpost. His communications officer hesitated. Sir, that includes the restricted zones. The quarantined sectors. I don't care anymore, Veltar snapped. Send it everywhere. Even to that death planet in the Sol system. The message shot across space faster than light, carrying the Federation's desperate plea for help. Most civilized species had heard rumors about the third planet orbiting Sol, a nightmare world where the very air could kill you and the surface constantly tried to murder anything living on it. The creatures there, if any still existed, were probably too primitive to understand the message anyway. Meanwhile, 67 light-years away, the message reached Earth's moon base. General Ryan Blake sat in the command center, surrounded by screens showing space traffic across the solar system. At 55 years old, Blake had weathered 3 alien first-contact situations and helped build Earth's secret space defense network. Colonel Amy Foster burst into the room, her face pale. Sir, you need to see this immediately. The alien transmission filled the main screen. Despite the strange language, Earth's computers had been decoding Federation communications for 30 years. The translation appeared in simple English: Galactic extinction event in progress. All species respond immediately. Coordinates attached. Blake studied the tactical data streaming in. The Void Swarm's expansion pattern looked familiar, like a virus spreading through a computer network or locusts moving across farmland. Earth had dealt with both. How long have we been tracking this situation? Blake asked. Our deep space monitors picked up the first attacks 3 weeks ago, Foster replied. Intelligence estimated the Federation had maybe a month before total collapse. Blake pulled up Earth's military readiness reports. Every branch of service had been quietly preparing for this day since the first alien contact 40 years ago. The world's governments had finally united around a single truth: when the galaxy came calling, Earth needed to be ready. Sir, the Federation's losing approximately 50 ships per hour, reported Lieutenant Jake Morrison from the intelligence station. Their retreat is accelerating. Whatever these Void Swarm things are, they're winning badly. Blake stood and walked to the massive viewing window overlooking Earth. The blue-green planet turned slowly below, beautiful and deadly. Hurricanes swirled over oceans that could crush submarines. Volcanoes painted the night sky red. Deserts baked under radiation that would kill most alien species in minutes. And somehow, 8 billion humans thrived in this chaos. "Activate Protocol 7, Blake commanded. Full planetary mobilization. Contact every fleet commander, every base, every ship. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you mess with our neighborhood." The space beyond Neptune looked like a metal city floating in the darkness. 847 human warships hung in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under distant starlight. Each vessel told a story of Earth's deadliest places and the people crazy enough to call them home. Captain Kyle Williams stood on the bridge of his destroyer, watching the massive fleet take shape around him. His ship bore the name, Tornado Alley, across its armored hull, and every person aboard had chased storms across the American Midwest. His weapons officer, Danny Rodriguez, had spent 15 years driving into hurricanes that would terrify most sane people. His navigator, Beth Cooper, could read weather patterns that changed faster than alien computer systems could process. "You know what I love about this?" Williams said, grinning at his crew. "These alien bug things think they're scary because they eat spaceships. Back home, we drive straight into tornadoes for fun." 3 kilometers away, the massive battleship Arctic Storm dwarfed most of the smaller vessels. Commander Lisa Davis had recruited her entire crew from Antarctica research stations. These were people who lived in temperatures that would freeze alien blood solid. Her chief engineer, Tom Mitchell, had kept nuclear reactors running during polar storms that lasted 6 months. Her security chief, Carol Hayes, had survived 3 Antarctic winters in emergency shelters built from ice and determination. Davis studied the fleet deployment on her tactical screens. "Every ship out there has a crew that shouldn't exist," she muttered to her first officer. "Most species in the galaxy would consider our normal living conditions to be torture." At the center of the formation, Admiral Ryan Anderson commanded from the flagship Death Valley. The name wasn't chosen randomly. His bridge crew included people who'd worked in some of Earth's most impossible environments. His tactical officer, Steve Parker, had spent 20 years mining uranium in the Australian outback where summer temperatures could cook unprotected humans in hours. His communications chief, Janet Wells, had been a deep-sea welder working on oil rigs 2 miles below the ocean surface where the pressure would crush most alien species instantly. "Admiral, final ship count coming in," announced Lieutenant Bobby Chen from the Fleet Coordination Station. 847 vessels reporting combat ready. Anderson nodded as he reviewed the incredible collection of humanity's finest. The heavy cruiser, Deepwater Hunter, was crewed entirely by former submarine personnel who'd spent years in the crushing depths of Earth's oceans. The assault ship, Volcano's Edge, carried a crew of geologists and miners who'd worked inside active volcanoes, breathing toxic gases that would kill most galactic species in seconds. "Look at this roster," Anderson said to his second-in-command, Captain Maria Santos. "We've got oil rig workers who think explosive decompression is just another Tuesday. Desert researchers who consider 130-degree heat to be comfortable room temperature. Mountain climbers who function perfectly in air so thin that most aliens would pass out immediately." The fleet included vessels with names that told Earth's story of survival: Sahara's Fury, Everest's Challenge, Hurricane's Eye, Radiation Zone, and Pressure Point. Each ship represented a different way humans had learned to thrive in conditions that would be considered uninhabitable death traps by civilized galactic standards. Captain Jennifer Murphy commanded the stealth frigate, Toxic Zone, with a crew of chemical plant workers and hazmat specialists. They'd spent their careers handling substances so dangerous that alien safety protocols didn't have classifications deadly enough to describe them. Her weapons specialist, Rick Thompson, had cleaned up nuclear accidents wearing nothing but a radiation suit and a bad attitude. "You realize we're probably the scariest thing the galaxy has ever seen?" Murphy radioed to the other ship commanders during final preparations. "Most species out there evolved on nice, safe worlds with reasonable weather and breathable air. We grew up on a planet that spends every day trying to kill us in creative new ways. The destroyer, Stormfront, carried a crew of tornado researchers and hurricane pilots. The mining vessel, Molten Core, was staffed by people who'd worked inside volcanic systems. The research ship, Polar Knight, had a crew that considered 6 months of total darkness and 60 below temperatures to be normal working conditions. Admiral Anderson opened a fleet-wide communication channel. Attention all vessels. In approximately 6 hours, we'll jump to hyperspace and travel to a galaxy under attack. The aliens out there are facing extinction from something called the Void Swarm. They sent a distress call because they're desperate and dying. He paused, looking at the tactical display showing hundreds of ships crewed by the toughest humans Earth had ever produced. What they don't know is that they just called the one species in the galaxy that considers their worst nightmare to be basic environmental training. All vessels report ready for jump. Lieutenant Chin coordinated the responses flooding in from across the fleet. All ships confirm combat readiness, Admiral. 847 vessels ready for hyperspace. Anderson smiled grimly. Take us to war. Let's show the galaxy what happens when Deathworlders go hunting. Space around Zephyr Prime looked like a graveyard. Pieces of shattered defense platforms drifted through the void while massive bioships shaped like giant worms tore through what remained of the Federation's last line of defense. Admiral Clickstor watched from his command ship as another orbital station disappeared into the hungry maw of a void swarm feeding vessel. Sir, we're detecting massive hyperspace distortions, his sensor operator reported, tentacles quivering with exhaustion. Something big is coming through. Clickstor's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. The Federation had been fighting for 3 weeks straight. His fleet had been reduced from 1,200 ships to less than 200. Every species in the galaxy had either fallen to the swarm or fled to the outer rim. No help was coming. No one answered their calls anymore. Then space itself seemed to tear open. 847 human warships materialized in perfect attack formation, appearing from hyperspace like ghosts stepping out of nightmares. The vessels moved with a precision that made Federation commanders nervous. Most galactic species needed several minutes to organize after a jump. These unknown ships were ready to fight the instant they arrived. By the ancient crystals, whispered Clickstor's tactical officer. Look at the size of that fleet. The human vessels spread out in a formation that Federation military academies taught was impossible to maintain during emergency combat drops. Yet here they were, hundreds of warships moving like a single organism, each one locked in perfect position relative to the others. Unknown fleet, identify yourselves immediately, Clickstor transmitted across all frequencies. His voice carried the desperation of a commander who'd watched his entire civilization crumble in 3 weeks. The response came back in perfect Federation standard, though the accent was unlike anything in galactic records. A human face appeared on every screen throughout the Federation fleet, scarred, weathered, with eyes that had seen too much death and destruction. But what terrified the aliens most was how completely calm he looked despite the chaos raging around them. This is Admiral Ryan Anderson of the Earth Defense Force, the human said simply. We received your distress call. The communication channels across the Federation fleet went silent. Every alien commander stared at their screens in shock. Earth. The quarantined death world in the Sol system. The planet where the very air could kill you and the surface boiled with volcanic activity. Most civilized species believed nothing could survive there, let alone build spaceships. Impossible, Clickstor muttered. Earth was classified as uninhabitable 2 centuries ago. His intelligence officer's tentacles turned pale blue with fear. Sir, our xenobiology report stated that any species evolving on that world would be unusually aggressive and resilient. Before anyone could respond, the Void Swarm detected the new arrivals. Hundreds of bioships, living vessels that looked like massive insects crossed with squid, turned away from their feeding frenzy and rushed toward the human fleet. These creatures had consumed entire star systems. They moved faster than most Federation ships could track and attacked with weapons that adapted to counter any defense. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries. Instead of forming defensive positions like every civilized species, the human ships accelerated directly toward the incoming swarm. No shields raised, no evasive maneuvers, no attempt to establish safe firing distances. They charged straight into the teeth of an enemy that had destroyed every fleet it encountered. Captain Kyle Williams grinned as his destroyer, Tornado Alley, plunged into the heart of the bioship formation. Around him, his crew worked with the calm efficiency of people who'd spent their lives driving into natural disasters that could wipe entire cities off the map. Just like chasing F-5 tornadoes back in Oklahoma, Williams called to his weapons officer. "Danny, light 'em up." The human weapons were unlike anything the Federation had seen. Instead of clean energy beams or guided missiles, they fired projectiles that moved faster than most species could track. The rounds punched through bioship armor that had shrugged off Federation plasma cannons. "Target the feeding tendrils," Williams ordered. "Hit them where they eat." His gunners had spent years studying hurricane formation and tornado behavior. They understood how natural forces worked, how to disrupt systems that seemed chaotic but followed predictable patterns. The Void Swarm bioships might be alien, but they moved like storm systems, and humans had been defeating storms for generations. Commander Lisa Davis aboard Arctic Storm watched her tactical display with satisfaction. "These things hunt like pack predators," she told her bridge crew. "Back home, we dealt with polar bear attacks and killer whales. Same principles apply." Her ship's weapons fired in coordinated bursts, targeting the bioship's communication organs. Within minutes, the swarm's perfect coordination began to break down as individual vessels lost contact with the hive mind. Admiral Anderson coordinated the assault from his flagship, watching as human ships carved through swarm formations that had terrified the galaxy. "All vessels, focus fire on the larger bioships. Take out their breeding chambers first." The Federation commanders could only watch in amazement as the humans systematically dismantled an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. These weren't just soldiers, they were predators who'd evolved on a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them. "Sir," Clickstore's communications officer whispered, "the humans are winning." For the first time in 3 weeks, Admiral Clickstore felt something other than despair. These creatures from the legendary Deathworld weren't just surviving against the Void Swarm, they were hunting it. The inside of a Void Swarm bioship looked like something from Earth's worst nightmares. Living walls pulsed with alien heartbeats. The air burned with acid that could melt steel. Strange organic growths dripped poison that glowed in the darkness. For most galactic species, just breathing inside these vessels meant instant death. For humans, it was just another day at the office. Sergeant Kelly Johnson kicked down a sphincter-like door and led her Marine squad deeper into the bioship's belly. Behind her followed 12 of the toughest people Earth had ever produced. Her demolitions expert, Randy Martinez, had spent 15 years working in coal mines so deep underground that the rock itself tried to crush him. Her medic, Beth Thompson, had worked emergency response in chemical plants where a single breath of unfiltered air could kill you in seconds. "Jesus, this place stinks," muttered Corporal Bobby Clark, a former park ranger from Yellowstone who'd spent his career working around volcanic vents that belched sulfur and poison gas. "Smells like that time the geyser backed up and filled the ranger station with hydrogen sulfide." Johnson checked her scanner as they moved through corridors that oozed acidic slime. "Equipment's holding up so far, but the atmosphere's trying to eat through our gear." "Big deal," laughed Martinez, who'd worked in mines where methane explosions were a daily hazard. "Back in West Virginia, we used to joke that if the air wasn't trying to kill you, you weren't working hard enough." The Void Swarm had evolved to be the perfect predator. Their bioships were living organisms designed to consume any technology they encountered. The corridors shifted and changed, trying to trap intruders. Poisonous spores filled the air. The walls themselves were weapons, shooting barbs coated with toxins that could drop an elephant in seconds. None of this impressed the humans. Thompson ducked under a spray of acid and kept running. "You know what this reminds me of?" That chemical spill in Texas where we had to work in full hazmat suits for 3 days straight. At least this stuff isn't radioactive. Yet, added Johnson grimly. They reached the bioship's control center, a pulsing chamber filled with organic computers that looked like giant brains connected by veins and arteries. Alien creatures that resembled oversized wasps buzzed around the room, their stingers dripping with venom that could dissolve Federation battle armor in minutes. The humans opened fire without hesitation. Martinez had dealt with underground cave-ins, gas explosions, and toxic air that would kill most people instantly. A few angry space bugs didn't even make him nervous. Remind me to tell you about the time I had to clear out a mine shaft full of killer bees and natural gas, he said, casually shooting down another alien warrior. Meanwhile, 3 decks below, another human team was having similar success. Chief Petty Officer Mike Rodriguez had brought a squad of former deep-sea workers who'd spent years welding underwater pipelines in the Gulf of Mexico. These were people who worked in pressure suits 2 miles below the ocean surface, where a single equipment failure meant instant death. The pressure in here keeps changing, reported Petty Officer Carol Hayes, a former submarine engineer who'd survived 3 emergency surface events that should have killed everyone aboard. Feels like the ship's trying to crush us. Rodriguez laughed. Carol, remember that time we had to fix that oil rig leak at 8,000 feet? This is nothing. The bioship's defenses were designed to overwhelm civilized species with environmental hazards that no sane creature would survive. The problem was, humans weren't sane by galactic standards. They'd evolved on a world where everything, the weather, the animals, the very ground beneath their feet, was constantly trying to murder them in creative ways. The Void Swarm's hive mind tactics confused most Federation species, but humans recognized the behavior immediately. Corporal Lisa Parker, who'd grown up on a farm in Kansas, watched the alien defenders coordinate their attacks and shook her head. They moved just like killer bee swarms, she told her squad. Same patterns, same weaknesses. You take out the command nodes, the whole system falls apart. Her team included former exterminators who dealt with everything from fire ants to aggressive wasp colonies. They'd learned long ago that the secret to fighting swarm creatures was disrupting their communication and targeting their leadership. Within an hour, the bioship was under human control. The organic computers were shut down, the command creatures were dead, and the vessel's living systems were dying without central coordination. Commander Jessica Roberts watched from the bridge of her assault carrier as similar scenes played out across dozens of Void Swarm bioships. Her boarding teams were dismantling vessels that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 weeks. Status report from all teams, she requested. Boarding Team Alpha has secured their target. No casualties. Team Bravo reports mission complete. 1 minor injury, Martinez got stung by something, but he says it just feels like a bee sting. Team Charlie has control of the enemy flagship. They're requesting permission to study the biocomputers before destroying them. Robert smiled as she watched the tactical display. Red dots representing Void Swarm vessels were turning green as human teams took control. The creatures that had consumed entire Federation fleets were being systematically captured by people who considered toxic atmospheres and deadly creatures to be normal workplace hazards. All teams, excellent work, she announced. Prepare for extraction and demolition. Let's send these bioships back to whatever hell they came from. The Void Swarm had never encountered anything like humans before. Most galactic species evolved on safe, stable worlds with predictable environments. When faced with the swarm's biological weapons and environmental hazards, they died quickly. Humans, on the other hand, had spent their entire evolutionary history dealing with a planet that wanted them dead. Poisonous air. They'd survived volcanic eruptions. Crushing pressure. They worked in the deep ocean trenches. Deadly creatures. Earth's wildlife made the Void Swarm look like harmless pets. As the last bioship fell under human control, Roberts couldn't help but laugh. The galaxy's most feared predator had just learned what happened when you messed with a species that considered survival to be a basic life skill. The silence that followed the battle was more terrifying than the fighting itself. For 3 weeks, the Void Swarm had filled space around Zephyr Prime with the screams of dying ships and the horrible sounds of biovessels consuming everything in their path. Now, suddenly, it was quiet. Admiral Clickstor stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Red dots representing Void Swarm vessels were disappearing from his screens one by one. Not destroyed, captured. The bioships that had terrorized the galaxy were being systematically taken apart by human boarding teams who treated deadly alien environments like routine maintenance work. Status report, Clickstor ordered, his tentacles still trembling from weeks of constant fear. His tactical officer's voice cracked with amazement. Sir, the humans have secured 47 Void Swarm bioships. They're actually dismantling them from the inside. The remaining swarm vessels are retreating toward the outer system. Through his ship's viewing portal, Clickstor watched something that would be remembered in Federation history books for centuries. The creatures that had consumed entire star systems were running away. The bioships moved in panicked, disorganized groups, nothing like the coordinated death machine that had rolled through Federation space for 3 weeks. The swarm is fleeing. Clickstor whispered. On his main screen, Admiral Ryan Anderson's scarred face appeared. The human looked exactly as calm as when he'd first made contact, despite having just won the most important battle in galactic history. Admiral Clickstor, Anderson said simply. The immediate threat has been neutralized. Our boarding teams are securing the remaining bioships. The Void Swarm won't be bothering your people anymore. Clickstor tried to process what had just happened. The Federation's combined fleets, representing 200 different species and 50,000 years of military evolution, had been completely defeated by the Void Swarm in 3 weeks. The humans had showed up and ended the war in 6 hours. We cannot adequately express our gratitude, Clickstor managed to say. Earth has saved not just Zephyr Prime, but the entire galactic community. How can we ever repay this debt? Anderson's expression didn't change. No payment necessary. We received a distress call and we responded. That's what neighbors do. Something about the human's tone made Clickstor nervous. There was a casualness to it that suggested this hadn't been particularly difficult for them. May I ask, how large is Earth's military force? Your fleet was most impressive. Anderson smiled, and that smile would haunt Federation commanders for years to come. This was our rapid response team, Admiral. We keep these ships ready for emergency deployment. The main armadas are still back home protecting Sol. The words hit Clickstor like a physical blow. This massive fleet, nearly 900 warships crewed by the toughest fighters he'd ever seen, was just their emergency response unit. Our mining vessels have heavier armor than most Federation dreadnoughts, Anderson continued conversationally. Our cargo haulers could probably ram through your battle stations. We build everything to survive because, well, everything on Earth tries to kill you on a regular basis. Clickstor's intelligence officer was frantically pulling up files on Earth. Sir, the officer whispered privately, our xenobiology reports from 2 centuries ago classified their homeworld as uninhabitable due to extreme environmental hostility. The atmosphere contains poisonous gases. The surface is covered in active volcanic regions. The weather systems include rotating storms that can level cities. And they consider this normal? Clickstor asked quietly. Anderson, still listening to their conversation, chuckled. Normal. Admiral, we have tourists who pay money to chase tornadoes for fun. We have people who live inside active volcanic zones because they like the hot springs. Our children learn to swim in oceans that contain creatures bigger than your battleships. Across the galaxy, news of the human victory spread faster than light-speed communications. Every species in the Federation received the same basic information. The quarantined death world of Sol had produced a military force that treated the Void Swarm like a minor training exercise. On the Federation capital world, Supreme Chancellor Vorth AK called an emergency session. The ruling council included representatives from every major species, beings who had guided galactic civilization for millennia. The strategic implications are staggering, reported the Federation's chief military analyst. If the humans' rapid response fleet could defeat the Void Swarm this easily, what would their main military force be capable of? Chancellor Vorthake studied the battle reports with growing unease. Recommendations? Immediate diplomatic contact, the analyst replied. Full Federation membership. Preferential trade status. Whatever they want, we give it to them. We cannot afford to have Earth as an enemy. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. For centuries, the Federation had maintained a quarantine around Sol, treating Earth as a curiosity, a death world where nothing intelligent could possibly evolve. Now they realized they'd been sharing the galaxy with apex predators who could end their civilization in an afternoon. Back near Zephyr Prime, Admiral Anderson received his first formal communication from Federation leadership. It was an official invitation to join the galactic community, along with offers of technology sharing, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Anderson forwarded the messages to Earth and waited for instructions. On Luna Command, General Ryan Blake read through dozens of similar offers that were flooding in from across the galaxy. Sir, reported Colonel Amy Foster, we're receiving membership invitations from every major galactic organization. The Traders Alliance wants exclusive partnerships. The Science Consortium is offering to share their entire database. 3 different species are requesting military cooperation agreements. Blake leaned back in his chair and smiled. 40 years ago, Earth had detected its first alien transmission. The governments of the world had immediately begun preparing for the day when humanity would have to prove itself to the galaxy. That day had finally come. Send a response to all parties, Blake ordered. Earth accepts membership in the Galactic Federation. We look forward to peaceful cooperation with all species. And Admiral Anderson? Yes, sir. Bring our people home. Mission accomplished. As the human fleet prepared to return to Sol, every alien commander in the system watched them go with a mixture of gratitude and terror. The galaxy had been saved by creatures from a nightmare world who treated interstellar war like routine pest control. The universe would never be the same.